Thanks for tuning in to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us today. You know, Brian, there's a lot of new things coming out, but there are also some old things that are expiring, like the initial Roundup Ready soybean trait. That patent expiration is going to happen later on this growing season, so it's something that we've got to discuss today.
Well, another thing we want to discuss today is Flexstar, or famecifin, is the active ingredient. It's found actually in a lot of different premixes today. We want to explain the reason why it's getting to be so popular and also some of the drawbacks with this particular technology.
We've also got a tough to control weed that we'll be addressing later in the show, but first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we wanted to talk just a little bit about farmer educational opportunities this winter.
Well, we do a lot of workshops in the winter around the country, and our goal with that is to help you raise better crops on your farm and make more money. And you say, okay, well, that's pretty cool. How much is this going to cost me? It's free. It doesn't seem to make sense, Brian. Usually you get what you pay for when it comes to going to one of these meetings.
Yeah, but the whole thing is we are just so thankful here at Ag PhD. We've been on the air for almost 16 years now. We've done a brand new show every week for 16 years. And we're just trying to say thanks to all of you as viewers of Ag PhD. And one of the ways that we try to do that is by interacting with you directly at these workshops. So we'll put together a free agronomy book that we'll give you, and then hopefully you can come to us and ask questions. And I really love these because it's where we learn quite a bit too. So yes, we do farm and we're constantly studying and trying to get better at agronomy, but it's always interesting, the farmer questions that we get. That helps us become a lot better agronomists and hopefully better TV hosts as well.
Well, it's a different meeting everywhere we're at. I mean, yes, there's some things that are the same. When we're talking about soils, there's a lot of that information that's going to be the same. When we're talking about some herbicides, true. It's not really going to change from one geography to another. Roundup is still Roundup, right? But when we're talking to farmers in Idaho versus North Dakota versus the boot heel of Missouri, I mean, there's different issues that you're facing depending on where you're at. And we're going to focus directly on the issues that impact that particular area at each one of our meetings.
The other thing is we are going to have 3 different types of workshops this winter. We'll have our regular agronomy workshops. We just call them Ag PhD winter workshops. But we're also going to have some soils clinics and some tiling clinics. So if you're interested in those couple of things, then we really invite you to participate in those as well. So each one of those 3 will be distinctly different. At the soils clinics, that's something that we're just doing for the first time this year. We're going to teach you how to read a soil test and how to really get into knowing what you need to do to make your soils better and how to best invest your dollars so you can get great returns on your farm when it comes to fertility and dealing with your soils.
All the information for our workshops will be posted online as far as where the places are that we're going to be, the dates and times and all that. So check out our website at agphd.com. You can actually sign up right there for the workshop or workshops that interest you. We would love to see you this winter.
One of the things we'll talk about a little bit at our agronomy workshops is weed control, including our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?
What's next in weed control technology? Roundup Ready to Extend Soybeans, an advanced soybean product with tolerance to dicamba and glyphosate. Roundup Ready to Extend Soybeans. Extend your control.
I wish I could apply all the PK and micronutrients this crop needs at planting.
You can. When your soils are not excessively nutrient deficient, you can apply a whole season of PK and micronutrients when you plant and get top yields at harvest. AgroLiquid's exceptional nutrient compatibility and superior efficiency allows you to prescription apply everything your crop needs safely and conveniently. Research proves it. For more info, go to agroliquid.com.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, Save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave P. Most of your applied P gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more P available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing P availability can lead to increased P uptake in the plant. That's more P, and more P. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.6 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your P with Avail.
At Case IH, our equipment doesn't just meet the standards, it set them. With industry-leading SCR engine technology, Case IH gives you more power while still meeting tough emission standards. In fact, the Steiger 620 is the highest horsepower tractor to ever come off the assembly line. And all Case IH equipment is agronomically designed to help you maximize your yield potential and your profits. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready? Learn more at caseih.com/efficientpower.
A proven herbicide for decades, dicamba can provide burn-down residual control of tough and resistant weeds for up to 14 days. That's another reason why farmers will use dicamba for years to come. Brought to you by Roundup Ready Plus Weed Management Solutions.
One of the most popular post-emerge soybean herbicides in the country today is Flexstar. The active ingredient is fameciphin. There are actually a lot of generic versions now to Flexstar, and this fameciphin, or Flexstar, it's in a lot of premixes as well. So we want to talk just a little bit today about how best to use this product, some of the misconceptions that are out there, and where not to use this product.
I was just thinking, if we could go back in time about 5 years, you would certainly not make that same first statement. One of the most popular soybean herbicides in the country is Flexstar. In fact, with Roundup Ready soybeans, when they first came out, I think the two products that got eliminated the fastest on most farms were Cobra and Flexstar or Reflex, because they burn the beans a little bit. And now those dealers are right back to, wow, we got to make sure we have lots of Flexstar around because guys are going to need it to control Roundup resistant weeds.
Okay, and specifically, there is no better product on water hemp than Flexstar. If your water hemp is Roundup resistant, and if you get that water hemp when it's relatively small, Flexstar can do a nice job.
Well, there are plenty of weeds that farmers may choose to use Flexstar on. You may be fighting common ragweed or even giant ragweed. Flexstar has been a good help. And I like how you talked about spraying it when the weeds are small, Brian. And here's one of the things that we really like to point out with products like Flexstar that can be used post-emerge in soybeans. We really prefer to use them post rather than pre. And as you had mentioned earlier, there are premixes out there that have it to be able to use pre-emerge. Like Prefix, for example, has got Reflex right in there. We don't really like using those if we have Roundup resistant weeds because we want to save all our options, keep all the options on the table to be able to use post-emerge, because once you have ragweed get through your herbicide program, or you have water hemp or palmer pigweed, a number of weeds, you just don't have many good rescue products if you don't have Reflex or Flexstar to use.
Yeah, what it comes back to is if you can't use Flexstar post-emerge, your next best choice for a Roundup resistant water hemp or Roundup resistant ragweed is going to be Cobra in a lot of cases. Well, of course, there's First Rate that does a good job on ragweed too, but still, Cobra will burn the beans typically a lot worse than what Flexstar will. So we'd really like to save that Flexstar for post-emerge use. There are plenty of other products we can use pre-emerge in soybeans. I think of Metribuzin, I think of the yellows, the DNA products, Treflan, Sonliner, Prowl. We've got Authority and Valor. We've got a lot of things we can use pre-emerge that can attack water hemp and ragweed. So why not use those products pre-emerge? Those can't be used post-emerge anyway. Save the Flexstar for post-emerge.
The other thing too to mention is when we're talking about using either Flexstar or Cobra, you'd made the comment about the burn, and I talked about that just a little bit. I want to say this, burning leaves is a lot different than, man, we're going to take 10 bushels off my yield. You just don't know that. When you burn leaves on soybeans, are you impacting your yield? That's a good question. You don't really know the answer. You would like to think, well, yeah, you have to be, don't you? Because you're kind of hurting that plant, but putting a little stress on the plant isn't always a bad thing. And the other side of it is if you have to kill weeds, weeds are big yield robbers. Burning a few leaves on a soybean plant, especially early to mid-season, is not that big a deal. If you've got weeds out there, you will help your yields by killing the weeds, even if you have to burn a few leaves to do it.
Yeah, but the other thing that we've learned over the years is if you have a good nutrient plan out there, you have a good fertility program on your farm, you don't have as much leaf burn. So as long as, granted, you're not spraying when it's 105 degrees out or anything like that, if you spray when the temperatures are fairly nominal, 85 degrees or less is great. And if you have good, especially boron levels, micronutrient levels in general, in your crop, everything else is in good shape, you'll typically have less leaf burn and almost zero yield response or negative yield response. In fact, sometimes you might even see a slight yield boost. So don't get too worried about this burning the crop thing. What I am much more concerned about is carryover to the next crop. With Flexstar or Famecifin, we have to be concerned about that carryover thing, and it's a bigger issue the farther west we are because of lack of moisture, and the farther north that you go in the United States because of colder temperatures. So yes, in the southeast part of the United States, you can use a fair amount of Flexstar. Where we farm, we can only use 12 ounces of Flexstar safely, and even then, I like to be really careful with that because there's a 10-month rotational restriction to corn. So if I want to plant my corn, let's say April 15th, what does that mean? That means you have to have your Flexstar sprayed by June 15th. So once again, this Flexstar Famecifin, it's a fantastic product on water, hemp, and ragweed. We want you to implement it into your program if you have Roundup resistant weeds, but just do it post-emerge. Use something else pre-emerge that can be used pre, because you can only spray Flexstar once a season, and you really probably shouldn't be spraying it back-to-back years. You got to be really careful with that 10-month rotational restriction to corn. But otherwise, like I say, it's a great product, really doesn't cost that much money.
Well, the downside of Flexstar brand is it doesn't kill every weed out there because it won't stop our weed of the week, but we'll show you what will coming up later in the show.
For lower cost, higher production, see your Mandaco agri-dealer. Ask about the best production-built land roller on the market. Mandaco, simple design for easy transport to easy use. 12 to 85-foot widths, heavy-duty 4x8 3/8-inch tube frame, and now available with a steerable wing wheel. Mandaco land rollers, improved soil-to-seed contact, faster, more uniform germination, less moisture loss, eliminate downtime due to rocks. See your Mandaco agri-dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
Looking to maximize yield? Quick Roots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. Quick Roots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. Quick Roots is applied to the seed so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients, including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your Quick Roots today.
With spring right around the corner, get your Case IH equipment ready with Titan Machinery's Uptime Maintenance Program. Uptime is Titan's preventative maintenance inspection, designed to eliminate costly downtime during the short planting season. Our technicians average nearly 10 years of experience and use a comprehensive Case IH factory checklist to find potential problems before they slow you down. Use your Titan Access account and make no payment and pay no interest until spring 2014 for qualifying uptime specials. Plant worry-free with Titan Machinery. Better solutions.
Capello corn headers are designed for producers who expect more. Expect more grain in your bin. Expect an industry-leading 2-year manufacturer's warranty. Expect Capello-designed chopping and folding options that save you time and money. And whether red, green, or yellow, expect row size options that fit your operation, because all producers deserve the best. Expect Capello. It's ahead above the rest.
If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. One of the big questions that soybean farmers are asking, you may be one of them, is what's going on with this Roundup Ready soybean patent expiration? Does that mean I can bin run my beans next year, or what's going on?
Okay, so with Roundup 1 beans, they did come out many years ago, and the patent does expire in 2014. The problem is it doesn't expire until August. So in terms of planting, you're not going to be able to plant Roundup 1 beans until the following year if you're trying to save your own seed. But here's what it really comes back to. Yes, the Roundup 1 trait is going off patent, but every variety out there is patented right now. So in other words, if you want to plant somebody's variety, you say, well, I'm going to go plant this variety in 2014, Roundup 1s. I'm going to save them for seed in 2015, so I just get the seed cleaned up, then I'll go plant those. Well, you may run into some problems because the variety is patented.
Well, I guess this is how complicated it gets to be. You know, there are multiple patents on many things that you have. Like, for example, the pickup truck that you may drive. You may have, I don't know how many patents could be in that thing. There could be 20, 30, 40 patents on different things in that equipment. And it's the same thing with your hybrid or your variety, in this case, that you're planting on your farm. There are multiple patents that could protect it. And you may say, well, what's the reason why? Okay, Monsanto has the patent on the Roundup Ready gene that went into your bean. But the breeder of that soybean also has patents protecting them. And the reason why is, let's just say, for example, you have a Pioneer soybean and Pioneer did the breeding on it. Well, they want to protect it because they don't want an Asgrow or a Mycogen or an NK or whoever to take that variety and breed off it with something they've got to try and make an even better variety. So the breeders have to have some protection in place so when they're putting these varieties out, that they aren't just going to get crossed with everything else and all of a sudden they're at a disadvantage again. So when you're choosing soybeans that you're going to plant in the 2015 season, you'll have to talk to the seed company that you're buying from and ask them, is it okay if I save these for next year, or are you going to come after me on some breeder patent that's on that variety?
So to this point, Monsanto has said they're going to let you take their varieties and go ahead and plant them in 2015, but that could change. So again, we really want you paying attention to this. It's a big deal if you're going to violate some patent thing, and obviously you don't want to get yourself into any trouble. The other side of this is, how much yield are you actually going to give up? Because the way I look at it, if I've got to plant a Roundup 1 now and go backwards in technology versus Roundup 2, the Roundup 2s on average on our farm are yielding 4 to 5 bushels more at least. Okay, so if let's figure on the low side, let's say it's 4 bushels times $12 beans, well, there's $48 right there. Okay, so am I really going to save $48 by cleaning my own seed up? Probably not. And then besides that, we've got to look at, well, how old is that Roundup 1 variety that I'm planting this year? I'm going to save it for seed in 2015. Chances are the new Roundup 2 varieties that are going to come out for 2015, they might be 6 or 7 bushels better. I just know that the only reason why new varieties keep coming out is they beat the old varieties. And I don't want to go backwards in terms of yield. Well, once again, the Roundup Ready 1 technology, that patent is expiring in the United States in August of 2014. So in 2015, you could plant Roundup Ready 1 soybeans that you have cleaned yourself, you've saved them for seed, and you won't get in trouble on the patent for the trait. You just have to be careful about the patent for the variety. Talk to your seed company and find out if you actually can save that for seed and plant it the next year. When soybeans are worth $10 or $12 a bushel, I just don't see that it's going to make economic sense to save my own seed, but it is certainly an option if you want to do it.
Well, one good thing about that Roundup Ready technology, Brian, is you can control weeds like our Weed of the Week. We'll show you how to stop this one coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
You work to protect your farm's legacy and to keep it going. Introducing the Enlist Weed Control System, an advanced herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate for exceptional control of tough weeds. The next chapter begins.
Our Weed of the Week is Fall Panicum. Now, this is one that we don't normally see on our farm, Brian, but it's a summer annual grass, and a lot of our weed control methods that we've been using for foxtails and other weeds will do a pretty good job on Fall Panicum too.
Yeah, now when you look at this Fall Panicum, it does have a hairy ligule just like the foxtails do. So You'd almost mistake it real early on for green foxtail. It also could be mistaken for a number of other grasses. And the whole thing when I'm thinking about this fall panicum, I just think the name's wrong, Darren. I think it should be called summer panicum or spring panicum. Well, when I think fall, I'm initially thinking, oh, it must be a winter annual, but it is just a summer annual.
Well, here's one of the things about it. You know, when we look at pre-emerge herbicides that we're putting out on our farm, usually in late March, early April. And we've got a weed that's going to come up a little bit later than a lot of the other grasses. This is where we run into some trouble. We see the same thing with field sandbur in our area where, you know, it's not that it's that tough a weed to control, it's just that it comes up later. And a lot of times when we're talking about those pre-emerge herbicides, the half-life on them may be 3 or 4 weeks. So a month after we've applied those products, half of that product may be gone already. Now normally it's not a big deal because we're going to have corn that's already starting to get up, maybe it's a foot taller, a little better, and by the time, you know, a majority of that product is worn off, we've got canopy out there and we don't have weeds that are getting through that we're still seeing at harvest time. But here's a couple of things, a couple of reasons why fall panicum's gotten tougher. One, Roundup Ready crops. Now you say, wait a second, I can spray Roundup Post, I should be much better off, shouldn't I? Well, yeah, you are. I mean, you can spray Roundup Post and do a good job controlling it, but Roundup has no residual. And when we're looking at the residual herbicides that are getting used in front of Roundup Ready crops, in a lot of cases, guys are using a half rate or 2/3 of a rate. So think about using a half rate like a month and a half or 2 months before the weeds are going to come up. This isn't going to work very well. That's why we're seeing some more of these summer annual type weeds getting through our Roundup Ready programs. Now by the time it's up, you got to get out there and spray Roundup fairly timely when that weed is, you know, maybe an inch or two tall if you want to stop losing a whole bunch of yield. But again, here's the thing. You may be seeing that fall panicum getting 4 inches tall. Now I can guarantee you've given up some yield before you got that weed controlled.
All right, let's talk specifically about the corn herbicides. Outlook, Dual, Harness, Surpass, they all seem to be fairly effective on fall panicum. Yes, they're probably not going to be perfect, but they're okay as long as you're using that higher rate like Darren mentioned. You can also try Balance Flex. That does seem to do all right. It's just not quite as good as the other products. Post-emerge, Accent has some activity, Liberty has some activity. I still prefer Roundup. That's the best choice in Roundup crops.
Well, and here's a little bit of a difference. When we think about Liberty, and I really like Liberty Link crops, I like having that option because we have a lot of Roundup resistant weeds. Fall panicum is not Roundup resistant right now, and it's a grass. That's kind of 2 strikes against the Liberty program because Roundup is a little better on grasses than what Liberty is in many cases. So in this particular case, I would prefer to have Roundup Ready crops if fall panicum was your main weed.
The other time we're really worried about these grass weeds is when we're planting wheat. So if you're going to put wheat out there, we really want you to start with a good pre-emerge product like Prepare, for example. Then you can come post-emerge with something like Axial to clean up any escapes. But if you don't get those 2 shots, a lot of times you're going to go out there and spray with a product like Axial that has no residual or very little residual, and you're going to have some panicum either come up later, or you waited too long, you let the weeds get big so you could kill everything, and then you hurt yield.
Now when it comes to soybeans, with any of these grass weeds, we really like starting off with a Treflan, Sonlan, or Prowl down. And you may be using a lot of Authority or Valor or combinations that have one of those 2 products in them because broadleaves may be a little bit tougher for you to kill in soybeans. That's fine. If you really need to use that Authority or Valor and you've got a great broadleaf program go ahead and stick with that because post-emerge we've got some choices. Now in Roundup Ready soybeans, of course, Roundup will work. In Liberty Link soybeans, Liberty will work. And I'm not trying to say Liberty's not going to work. You just have to be pretty timely about it and get that weed when it's fairly small to be really effective.
Well, that's it for our Weed of the Week fall panicum, but stay tuned. Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
What are farmers doing to feed the planet? They're using Quadtrek technology, soil management, and planting systems from Case IH to foster a better growing environment that maximizes yield potential. Visit caseih.com to be ready.
In today's Iron Talk, we're going to discuss your tires and what the numbers mean on the side of the tire. What's the difference between a 710 7538 and a 650 8538? Those big numbers are very important when you're trying to figure out what kind of load your tires can carry and what kind of impact they'll have on compaction and traction in your field. So let's discuss those numbers to start with. First of all, let's say you're looking at like this tire, a 710 70 R42. Well, the 710 stands for the millimeters of width of that tire. So how wide the tire is. Now, if millimeters don't mean much to you, you can just divide that number by 25.4 to estimate the number of inches. In this case, 710 millimeters is about 27.95 inches. The second number is 70. That's the aspect ratio, or the sidewall. So what this tells us is the sidewall is 70% of the width of the tire. The R stands for radial. Now, instead of an R, you may have a B or simply a dash. The B or dash means bias tires. The R stands for radial tires. And finally, that last number 42, that's the rim diameter. Now we've got 710, 70, R42. Those numbers I think many of us understand. But there are some other things on the tire that you may be interested in. For example, this one says radial tubeless. That means it can run without a tube, just like a car or pickup tire, because it's built into the inner liner. Now here's some other things. The standard load index rating, and this is one that's very important. If you look at this one, it says 173A8 and 173B. Now the 173A8 means it's designed to carry a load signified by that 173, which translates to pounds or kilograms, and the A8, that means at 25 miles per hour. Now the 173B means you could also carry that same load at 30 miles per hour. There's a lot of information on the side of a tire. Just take some time to look through those numbers, understand what they mean, and that will help you pick the right tire for your operation. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Upgrade your trailer to electric with the Rolltech electric system from AgriCover. Strong, flexible pivot arms and motor mount rotate and telescope, allowing the roll tube to rise and flex over heaped loads. The positive automatic lock is impossible to back off to control the flow of grain. This integrated system uses one wireless remote to operate up to 10 tarps and hoppers, keeping your driver out of the dust, rain, and harm's way. See the Rolltech system in action at an AgriCover dealer near you.
You expect a lot from this seed, and as it grows through each stage of development, Agroculture Liquid Fertilizers is there, feeding your crop exactly what it needs when it needs it. So no matter how you fertilize, no matter when, AgroLiquid efficiently brings all the nutrients your crop needs for a great harvest. From 1 kernel in the ground to 600 on the ear. For better yields and better quality, Agroculture Liquid Fertilizers.
At Case IH, our equipment doesn't just meet the standards, it set them. With industry-leading SCR engine technology, Case IH gives you more power while still meeting tough emission standards. In fact, the Steiger 620 is the highest horsepower tractor to ever come off the assembly line. And all Case IH equipment is agronomically designed to help you maximize your yield potential and your profits. The world of farming is changing. Will you be ready? Learn more at caseih.com/efficientpower.
If you watch Ag PhD TV, you'll love the new Ag PhD radio show each weekday on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80. This is Darren Hefty. On the new Ag PhD radio program, we'll take live callers and provide the agronomic information and brotherly banter you've come to expect from Ag PhD. We'll feature a Back 40 segment where we talk to farmers and agronomists around the country to share what's going on with crop production. And it wouldn't be Ag PhD without addressing a pest of the day. Tune in to the Ag PhD radio show each weekday at 2 p.m. Central on Rural Radio Sirius XM Channel 80.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's show, but be sure to tune in again next time for another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
No one cares more for the environment than family farmers who plan to pass their land down to their children. These same farmers are working to double yields over the next 15 to 20 years to feed the growing world. To learn how they plan to do it, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.